Hello, my name is Omri Berman, a Master of Sciences in Electrical Engineering from Tel Aviv University, Israel. And today, I'll be presenting my research paper conducted as part of my master's thesis. The paper is named PETIT-GAN, Physically Enhanced Thermal Images Translation Generative Adversarial Network, and was written in collaboration with Tel Aviv University and the Volcani Institute of Agricultural Research. We will begin our presentation with a brief introduction, followed by our proposed methods. We'll then look at some results of our methods, and finally draw some conclusions based on the results. To begin our introduction, we'll first talk about multispectral imaging, which is an acquisition technique for capturing multiple spectral channels simultaneously, where each channel is characterized by a small bandwidth. This technique enables something called spectral unmixing, which is essentially a way of differentiating between elements belonging to different materials based on their emission spectrum, as depicted in the image below. The focus of our research lab is devoted to the thermal spectrum, which are electromagnetic waves between 7 and 14 micrometers long. These waves carry out information that's useful for many applications, for example, geospatial analysis. Unfortunately, multispectral cameras are very expensive, and in our specific use case, no multispectral thermal data is publicly available for developing useful applications in the thermal domain. To advance the research in this field, we decided to be the first to assemble and share a publicly available dataset of multispectral thermal images. To that end, we used a lightweight airplane, to which we attached a simple thermal camera and conducted several flights, every time with either some IR filter connected to the camera lens, in which case the images were monochromatic, or without such filter, in which case the images are panchromatic. Inherently, images collected in different flights and in different spectra are unregistered and unpaired. However, these images can be used to train unpaired image-to-image translation models, which can in turn be used to artificially generate a spatially consistent multispectral thermal images dataset. The goal of our research is to learn an unpaired image-to-image transformation between different thermal spectra. We further hypothesize that unique thermal physics can improve the quality of deep unpaired image-to-image models. In our paper, we showcase the transformation of wideband, also known as panchromatic thermal images, to a specific narrowband, also known as monochromatic thermal images. Next, we will review our proposed methods. Our unpaired image-to-image transformation consists of three parts. The first one is a deep unpaired image-to-image estimator, for which we used a GAN. The second is a physical estimator calibrated to perform thermal unpaired image-to-image translation. And the third is a fusion of the deep and physical estimators, which we termed PETIT-GAN. For the deep estimator part, we tested two different architectures of generative adversarial networks, or GANs. The first one was cycle GAN, which uses cycle consistency, and the second one, which is contrastive unpaired translation, or CUT, that uses contrastive learning. Both CycleGAN and CUT share the same generator implementation of an encoder, a bottleneck, and a decoder. To fully understand our physical estimator, we need to provide some additional background for thermal imaging. The Stefan-Boltzmann formula states that the power radiated from an object is proportional to its temperature to the power of 4. In 2013, Nugent and his colleagues published a paper suggesting that the intensity of a thermal pixel in a thermal camera does not only depend on the object's temperature, but also on the camera's intrinsic temperature at the moment of acquisition, and it depends on it through a third-order polynomial, as described in the equations below. Based on Nugent's theorem, we calibrated two thermal transformations. The first one takes in intensities of a panchromatic image and the temperature, the intrinsic temperature of the camera during acquisition, and outputs the estimated temperature of the object that's being captured. The second one takes in a temperature of an object and an intrinsic temperature of the camera and should output the estimated intensity as if that object was captured using a monochromatic camera or a simple thermal camera with an IR filter. We then cascaded the two transformations to get a complete panchromatic to monochromatic unpaired image-to-image model that takes in an actual panchromatic image and outputs an estimated monochromatic image. At the right-hand side of the screen, you can notice an illustration of our calibration setup that includes an oven to control the intrinsic temperature of the camera, a hole drilled through the edge of the oven to allow the thermal camera to acquire images from the outside, and in front of the camera, an industrial black body that's meant to control the temperature of the object being captured. As mentioned before, our method, named PETIT, is in fact the fusion of the two different estimators, the physical estimator and the deep estimator, as depicted in the image in front of you. The fusion model takes in a panchromatic image and passes it in parallel through the upper branch, which includes the generative adversarial networks generator, and through the lower branch, which includes the calibrated physical unpaired image-to-image translator. And the output, which is the estimated monochromatic image, is in fact the summation of both models. Using this architecture, the physical model provides an initial raw estimate of the output and leaves the generator with the task of filling in or improving the finer details in the estimation. Moving forward to the results, we begin with a quantitative analysis. PETIT-GAN, our method, was compared to the generative model's baselines that were exhibited prior, which are CycleGAN and CUT, trained to perform the task end-to-end. We used the well-known Frechet inception distance, or FID, metric for the evaluation, where each configuration was trained 10 times consecutively, and the mean and standard deviation were used for the comparison. Looking at the numbers, we see that using our method, that is PETIT, where we incorporate the physical estimator together with the deep generator, our method achieves a much better FID score in both mean and standard deviation aspects compared to the end-to-end backbone trainings of both CycleGAN and CUT. The improved performance is also noticeable from a qualitative perspective, as can be seen in the results in front of you. The leftmost column is a set of inputs, panchromatic inputs, that were provided to the model. The rightmost column is a set of real monochromatic, unpaired monochromatic images that are there for reference and to get a feeling of the true nature of the monochromatic modality. And in the middle, we can see a comparison between the contrastive unpaired translation model baseline, which is the CUT model trained end-to-end without our physical estimator, and PETIT, which is our model, where we use the same CUT generator and augment it with our calibrated physical estimator to provide improved results. We'll now move forward to draw conclusions from the results. As we saw, physical modeling is beneficial for thermal unpaired image-to-image translation. PETIT, our model, beats deep state-of-the-art unpaired image-to-image models both quantitatively by almost 50% and also qualitatively. These left us under the impression that the fidelity of the generated monochromatic images is good enough for synthesizing an artificial multispectral dataset, which was the initial goal of this research. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and thanks for listening.